people don't start MLMs unless they know they can make tons of money.
Right.
Starting an MLM.
Right.
And doing it off the backs of, all the people who are losing money in them.
Yep.
So there has to be a questionable moral compass happening with people who start MLMs. Like, I just don't believe a good person starts an MLM.
I just started recording right now.
Okay, because now I want to go into butthead voice.
Should we do an entire
Hey Beavis.
episode? The problem is that I can't do a Beavis voice. You can
do butthead.
See, you can do both of their voices. I can do neither. It's not good for our shtick.
In case you guys can't tell, we've been watching a lot of let's see, what's it called again? Oh yeah, Beavis and Butthead.
You know what? I'm going to spin this into being relevant for this season.
Ooh, because it's self-care.
Something we have found as elder millennials. It is very comforting to return to media of our youth, and not even necessarily like a cartoon. I guess Beavis and Butthead is a cartoon.
It's a cartoon, Kayla.
But like putting on 90s music videos, 90s commercials, 90s media like Beavis and Butthead. It can be very comforting in the nostalgia, in the just like, oh. And then also,
come.
Also, Beavis and Butthead is just great. So if you are of a similar age as we are, maybe try a little Beavis and Butthead.
Hell yeah! So are we shilling for Paramount Plus now? Is that?
God no, never.
Okay.
Actually, yes, yeah. Paramount Plus.
Where else are you gonna watch it?
Hire me, Paramount Plus.
Okay.
That's the extent of my business is Beavis and Butthead.
That's it. That's the show.
So
happy Beavis and Butthead, everybody.
Are you ready for a new episode?
I am I could not be more ready to talk about some cult or just weird with you in this boiling hot room.
It's very hot right now, but it's going to get a whole lot hotter.
Ooh.
I don't know. It's not actually.
This is like the Nugget Couch Part 2?
It's not. The Nugget Couch, also self-care. I have a question for you.
Okay.
As per usual on this show. What is the worst part about MLMs like LuLaRoe or Herbalife or Amway? And I'm asking this question as aside from like the millions of dollars scammed from hardworking people and like the lives destroyed by the crushing grift.
Okay, so I can't say like the raw exploitation of the people that.
Yeah, what's the worst part of them outside of those things? Outside of the grift itself.
I don't know, man. Like their products are just so lame.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay.
Like this, the whole thing is just lame. You know what? I shouldn't be saying this because like there's probably people that we have listening that have done, and I know my mom listens and she did it. Mary Kay, and so, okay, you know what? Mary Kay is not lame.
So we talked about this on our previous MLM episodes. Some of the products are actually good, useful,
That's
well-beloved.
I guess it depends on the company, but like maybe I was just primed to say that because you said LuLaRoe, and I'm like, I don't know. So I guess
you find,
but even then,
lame.
like the leggings that they started selling were pretty good, and then
buttery soft,
and then they turned into moldy leggings with
they're ripped apart.
The Leaning Tower of Pisa going into the crotch. So I don't know. I guess there's just something. I don't know. Like there's just something inherently like jokey about it, about the whole thing.
You are going to dig this week's topic then.
Okay.
And I just did a pun there that you'll understand later.
Dig?
Yeah.
Cool.
So to answer my own question, that was a good answer. Wasn't the answer I was looking for.
Oh, okay. Well, let's just record again, and I'll just give you until I get the right one.
You get it. Yeah. The worst part, I think, is that they're still around. Like LuLaRoe,
okay, that's fair.
Still around. Herbalife, still here. Amway, unique. Like we have covered a number of MLMs on this show. Some, not so bad, like the Mary Kay episode. Some pretty bad, like Beachbody. We've even talked to other shows about even more and worse MLMs. And like the horror stories never really seem to end with this. Like even with like the documentaries and court cases and explosive media exposés. Around and around and around.
Anti-MLM
yes.
community.
But like a single company will have like a downfall and then they'll somehow seem to stick around. Exactly like LuLaRoe. Like, LuLaRoe fucking exploded.
Yeah.
It is still there. And
yeah,
I
it's
think
like a cockroach.
it is exactly like a cockroach. I think for us, and probably for, activists in the anti-MLM space, like, it's kind of disheartening. It's kind of frightening. It's disempowering. It sucks. It sucks.
I mean, it doesn't matter that it explodes, Kayla, because it's not about the business, right? It's about the pyramid. So,
Right.
like, if LuLaRoe explodes, like, that's cool. They just do round 2 of Ye Old Pyramid.
Right. Right.
Second verse, same as the first.
Never ending. Like you said, cockroach.
Yeah.
But it's not the only story to tell about MLMs.
Ooh.
We know a lot of the big names. We've said some. There's also Beachbody and Cutco and doTERRA and New Skin and Avon and a million others. We know these names because, like, they seem Teflon. Like, no matter how many people know that these companies are scams, no matter how many people expose them, no matter how many times they're in the news, they stick around. Mm-hmm. So why does every MLM seem to have such staying power? The answer...
Okay. Money.
The answer is that they don't.
Oh, wait. What? No, but you said LuLaRoe's still around, and, like, everything's still...
They
Amway's
are,
still around.
but that's not the only story. There's another side to the MLM story that we really haven't touched on as much, like the heartening, empowering, less sucky side.
Oh, because this is our, like, helpers, good news, like,
Yeah.
helpful seasons. Oh, that is... Okay, I love that this is, like, you're doing the, like, the MLM episode, like, but branded for, like, the helper
For this
season.
season.
Yeah.
This is us telling the side of the story of the MLMs that do get taken down.
Hell yeah.
And that get taken down gloriously.
Oh.
So, yeah, let's go ahead and tell one of those stories today.
Oh, okay. This is going to be great.
I have another question for you then, Chris.
Yeah. Yes, I am excited.
And it is this.
Oh my God. What are you going to ask me?
Would you like to eat some dirt?
What?
I have a follow-up question.
Is this like the dirt ice cream? Or
No.
Just plain dirt?
I have a follow-up question. Maybe it sweetens the pot a little.
Does it sweeten the dirt?
What if that dirt cost $110 a pop?
Is it a
Does
dirt pop?
that make the prospect more attractive to you?
How much dirt are we talking about?
I'm talking like, okay, a $110
Like a spoonful?
bag of dirt is like this much.
Okay, so
And you
you're
can
holding
use
your
the-
hands about a foot apart. That's a big bag.
I mean, I wouldn't even call it a big bag for $110.
To eat. It's a big bag to eat.
What I'm saying is that if you go to like Home Depot and you get like potting soil, those bags
Yeah,
of potting soil are
gigantic.
humongous. This has a football field. They're not $110.
Right. You're
This is
describing like a chip
Ziploc.
bag.
Yeah, a chip bag like of dirt.
Sure.
And
like
you don't have to
that's-
eat it all in one sitting. It's like you can make teas out of it. You can make various things out of it that we will talk
What?
about. But would you eat some dirt?
No, okay.
Okay, actually I can sweeten the pot even further.
Okay. I don't think you sweetened it the first time, though.
What if I told you that eating said dirt would cure all of your symptoms?
Oh, there it is. Okay. Oh, now
All of your
yeah.
symptoms.
Yes, definitely.
Well, what symptoms am I talking
first
about?
of all, and it doesn't matter because I don't want them. Symptoms are bad.
Do you want me to say the symptoms?
I would definitely eat dirt if it cured symptoms. I don't know if I would eat that much of the... Wait a minute. Do I know what you're going to be talking about?
Do you know what I'm going to be talking about?
This isn't
no,
the dirt
I'm
that
not
I
talking
eat, is
about
it?
your dirt. I forgot that you eat
Oh,
dirt.
God.
I forgot that you actually do eat dirt.
I do eat dirt. I
Oh,
do.
no. Do you want to explain your dirt?
Okay, hold on. Let's back up here. Okay. Would I eat a bag of dirt the size of a chip bag all in one sitting?
No one's asking
No.
you to do that.
Would I spend $110 to buy a bag of curative dirt that I didn't have to eat all in one sitting that lasted me like a month or something? I guess the answer there is yes, but it depends on if it actually cures. I'm assuming that because it's dirt, that's not true. And also, this is an MLM that you mentioned, so already I'm thinking it's not true. So, but if it were, then yeah, I'd totally eat that dirt. The dirt that I...
Tell us about your dirt,
The
Chris.
dirt that I eat that is has some. So I have looked this up before.
You have eaten it
there
daily
is some,
for 15 years.
Yes, there is some backing to this. So this is why I do it. It's like a mineral clay. It's not exactly dirt. It's a mineral clay that is supposed to help with your digestion. And it also contains a lot of like trace minerals and a lot of calcium. So it's like, good. It's almost like its own little like multivitamin type. So it's basically a multivitamin. I don't just like sit there and eat, like you can't eat clay because that would it would make you choke. I mix it in with a drink that like a water or something.
That's what you do with this dirt.
Okay.
You can mix it up.
So So maybe
you would fall for this MLM.
It sounds like maybe this is what I'm susceptible to. I don't know.
So maybe you're wondering about the symptoms that it can address for you. Because, with your dirt's just giving you some trace vitamins and minerals. It's not solving any major problems.
Well, it does say that it's supposed to, keep your digestion healthy. I don't think it talks about any specific symptoms.
Well, let's get into some specific symptoms.
Okay.
So what if this magic dirt that I'm now selling you, what if I said it could address your chronic fatigue?
Ooh, that sounds good.
Your weight gain, which I think is controversial to call that a symptom, but we continue on.
But it's certainly a powerful marketing
Yes, it is. Inflammation.
Ooh.
Migraines.
Ooh.
Candida.
What?
Joint issues. Anxiety. Depression. Low blood sugar.
I don't know if it can do all this stuff.
Infertility. Acne. Arthritis. Asthma. Brittle nails. Thinning hair. PMS. Cramps. Cancer. Autism. Step right up and I will give you this snake oil. And more.
Okay, so definitely you're way past the OTC 1-2 cure line there.
Oh, there's a really important one that I forgot though. It can also cure you of your parasites.
Oh, is this like it cures you of the parasites and then parasites cause everything?
Did you know that every human being has parasites?
Yeah.
And they're probably causing your symptoms, whatever your symptoms may be, even if they're just normal expressions of human experience.
I have heard the people that think that parasites cause everything. I think that's like with the
people who drink turpentine.
I think those folks believe that. That's why they think that the bleach
but that's unnatural. This is dirt from the earth. We'll talk exactly about what
I think dirt can give you parasites.
I'm using dirt in a bit of a pejorative. We'll get into the specifics of what the product is.
Yeah, maybe it's mineral clay, Kayla.
It's the mineral clay that you keep in our closet. I first came across the topic we're discussing when I was, surprise, surprise, scrolling TikTok last year.
Oh, yeah.
I happened upon a video in which a woman was preparing a special bath for herself. And we got kind of like a before, during, and after, if I remember correctly. First, she drew the bath and into this crystal clear steaming water.
Oh, God.
She dumped a bunch of dirt.
Am I to be envisioning potting soil here? Because that's what I've been envisioning this whole time is
imagine a cross between your mineral clay, that kind of consistency, but the color of the potting soil.
Okay,
dark
and for our listeners, the clay that we're talking about is it's kind of like a fine powder. I mean, that's what clay is, right? It's like a very fine particulate matter. So it's that's what the clay is. And so you're saying it's like
a fine dirt.
A fine dirt.
It's definitely dirt,
dark.
but it's,
okay.
It's worth $110, so it's a little fancy.
It's very fine.
So the dirt dissolves into the water. It turns the bath into kind of like a rusty brown pool.
Okay. So it looks like you're just taking a poo bath?
Poo bath, maybe a tea bath. Cut to a POV of the woman in said bath. We're going to get a shot of her legs, her feet in this tepid pool of would-be mud.
Hot.
And then we get the aftermath, the money shot. We get the parasites.
Oh, no. No.
The video zoomed in on little bits left behind in the bath.
Oh, no.
And these were bits that the woman claimed were worms and parasites that had crawled out of her.
Out of her skin?
Her skin.
Ew.
While she had been in the bath. So whatever this dirt was,
God.
It was so magical that it drew literal parasites out of her body upon use.
That didn't happen, but it's still really gross.
I ralphed immediately, or at least metaphorically, and then immediately searched for more of these videos.
Yeah, of course.
And some of these videos had little wriggling worms
Ew.
in these baths. I want to be sick thinking about it. Oh God, okay. So I looked at a bunch of these videos.
Trigger warning for this podcast.
This was my introduction to Black Oxygen Organics, or BOO, as it was often known in its vast social media circles.
Okay.
And yes, it was dirt being sold for $110 a bag. And
MLM
yes, it
style.
was an MLM.
Okay.
Like other MLMs, it had a meteoric rise. The company was founded under a different name in 2015, but the Boo label, it exploded under the Boo label in 2020, largely thanks to the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic.
You know, the nice thing about this product is like, when you wind up with a garage full of leggings, like, what do you do with that, right? But like, if you wind up with a garage full of dirt, you just start a garden. Like, that's not that bad.
You can just grow some food. Actually, I don't know if you can. I don't know. We'll answer that question.
We'll get to that
as the time comes. As we know, a lot of MLMs actually grew during the early stages of the COVID-19 pandemic. I learned recently that there was a 13% increase in people working for MLMs from 2019 to 2020. And since Boo occupied the space of like alternative wellness and health claims, you can imagine why it gained a particular foothold.
Right.
But the company closed its doors in November 2021, just a year and a half after its rise to the top.
Oh no, Boo.
So what happened?
Boo.
Luckily, we have a special interview today with somebody who actually had a hand in bringing down Boo.
What? Seriously?
Because just as swiftly as Boo's star rose, so did its debunkers.
Whoa.
Online.
So we have one of the people like shoved the stake in the heart of this bullshit enterprise.
There were a lot of online anti-MLM activists who took immediate action against the company's bonkers stances, and they did things like infiltrating the community and exposing like the darker sides of the scam by debunking the various claims of Boo, and even like leaking recordings of private company meetings to the public and stuff like that.
Hell yeah. I like these people so much already. And we just talked to one.
One of those activists goes by ML Mombi online, so like MLM Mombi.
Oh, okay. Got it.
And agreed to chat with us about her experiences in helping to expose Boo.
Would you say that she is the magic dirt of society that is helping remove these MLM-like symptoms that we are experiencing?
I will let her answer that question.
Okay.
So let's talk to her now and get the rest of the story.
Can't wait.
Can you introduce yourself to our audience? So tell us your name, your pronouns, and just a little bit about your anti-MLM activist background or whatever you want to share.
My name is Kira Manchester. I am an anti-MLM activist and consumer advocate. I have been involved in the anti-MLM movement for about 5 years, and I've had my page Mombi for about a little over 4. I started in April of 2018. I got into it because a family member had joined Herbalife.
Gotcha.
And another family member had kind of asked me to look into it because they thought it sounded a little off, and they know I'm the kind of person that likes to deep dive into subjects. And so I'm like, yeah, I'll look into it. And it was like the rabbit hole of a lifetime. Herbalife is one of the big companies that's been around for a long time, and they're very well like politically connected. They have their hands kind of in lots of places, even with like regulatory agencies. And people don't realize that MLMs go that deep into it. When I first started off, it was pretty obvious to me that they were pyramid schemes. That was my initial reaction. But I didn't understand that they were cults until later.
Can I ask, did you get started in consumer advocacy because of your anti-MLM involvement, or was it the other way around?
Because of my anti-MLM involvement.
Gotcha.
Because I tend to choose to focus more on like health and wellness MLMs, which usually include a product that's dangerous, because they're making these health claims and people are going off of their medication.
Right.
Or they're not going to the doctor and stuff like that. So it's more like anti-MLM consumer advocacy. I would consider anti-MLM like a subset of consumer advocacy.
Got it. That makes sense.
Yeah, especially with stuff like Herbalife where, they have the little pop-up shops now, and it's like they don't call themselves Herbalife, but you're just like drinking a shake made from Herbalife products. And it makes sense that that's the one that kind of got you into it, because that rabbit hole.
Yeah, and liver issues connected to that product too that they try and hide, and they're very sneaky. So, they try and get things wiped clean in a lot of these companies.
Right.
So.
Herbalife's a scary one.
Yeah.
So I know about Herbalife. What I don't know about is this what's it called? Boo. So there's this company called Boo, and my understanding is that you are an expert on this particular MLM, and so I guess my question is just, what is Boo?
All I told him is that it's dirt. So with health claims.
Yeah, that's the simplest form of it. Yes. BOO stands for Black Oxygen Organic, so it's just called BOO for short, and it's actually dehydrated bog mud.
Okay.
That they then rehydrate in water to either like bathe in or like put pastes on their bodies like masks, or to consume and put in every single orifice you can think of.
Oh God.
Yeah.
So
we're going down that rabbit hole, the woo rabbit hole with this one.
Right. So is it like, okay, so I get this dirt product in the mail. Is this the type of thing where like instead of LuLaRoe leggings in my garage, I just have like just bags of dirt?
Yes.
Is that the idea?
Basically, yes.
Okay.
Little bags of dirt that cost like $100 and something.
Right.
$100 dirt. Awesome.
Yeah.
The claim that I keep
for like this big of a bag. It's like
they're so small.
Yeah.
They're so small. They're shockingly small for the high price point.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing that I keep seeing is that there's this claim of something called fulvic acid in the product. Like, what is that they're saying is like, oh, this is the magic part of the magic dirt?
Yeah. Well, they didn't sell it as like, here, eat some dirt. They sold it as a fulvic and humic acid supplement. Okay. And so fulvic and humic acid is like naturally found in dirt, and their whole belief system kind of comes from the idea of like plants, because it's used a lot in like fertilizers and stuff. So what will happen is that the fulvic acid and the humic acids, they can grab onto like nutrients, and then the plant sucks it up and then can utilize it. And they're thinking the same thing is happening in their body, and they think it's detoxing them, because some of the things that it will grab onto are like heavy metals, whereas a plant can utilize some of those.
Right.
But in your body, they think it's taking it out, but it's not, because we're not plants.
Yeah.
I didn't even know there was such thing as fulvic acid, but it sounds like that there's sort of like this, they take this scientific true thing and then use it to kind of like create their own like marketing claims about it. Is that the idea?
Yes, basically, because that's how most kind of like pseudoscience is. They always take something that sounds a little bit scientific, but then make it bullshit.
Right. Just run away with it.
Yeah. I feel like we see that all the time, especially with the health and wellness stuff. Like, it's always, oh, this is the one true cure. Or like when you get into the more woo stuff of like, oh, they're going to throw out like quantum mechanics words and just like totally use that.
Got that too.
Yeah.
The word quantum is just its own red flag at this point.
Wait, do you get that with BOO, the quantum mechanics stuff?
Oh, really?
Yes. Okay.
Classic.
I feel like we need a little more background, but I want to come back to that for sure. That is right up our alley. So I guess just to kind of go back to the beginning, can I get your take on the founder of BOO? I think his name is Mark St-Onge. Like, I read in an article that he's actually been in the dirt selling business for like 25 years. And like BOO was just kind of the latest iteration. Like, what is your take on this guy?
Yeah. So he basically started off as like a glorified massage therapist.
Okay.
But he calls himself like all sorts of other titles. And he claimed that he worked with this mom who was like an esthetician, and they were looking for things like mud masks, like new kind of innovative products. And so he had gone to Germany, I believe it was, and he saw these mud baths that people were going into. And he claims he saw somebody get into the bath out of a wheelchair and then get out of the bath walking. So that's where the miracle mud came from.
Oh, God. Okay.
And so then he came back to Canada, because he's from Canada. And he was trying to figure out, how am I going to get this mud all the way from Germany over here, this miracle mud? And then they started testing the mud around Canada, which they do have a lot of bogs there. So, and bogs, when stuff is, sitting and aging, that's where the fulvic and humic starts to develop in the dirt. And so what they ended up doing is he tested it, and lo and behold, the bog that was 10 minutes away from his house happened to have this crazy amount of fulvic humic acid.
What a miracle.
What a happy coincidence.
So convenient. And so he started taking the mud from there, and originally he was keeping it in a washing machine and bagging it up in Ziploc bags.
I'm sorry. Mud in a washing machine is just a great, I don't know. Is that like I feel like there's a metaphor there or something.
Oh, God.
And then he was selling these Ziploc bags of the mud to his clients, like his massage therapy clients, basically. And they kept coming back and wanting more, and then telling their friends. And he's like, I have to turn this into a business. And that's his story anyways.
He seems like somebody who is very good at telling people that maybe what's some things that they want to hear. Like I watched a very brief interview with him before it was Boo. It was like Golden Rod or Golden Moor. Yes. And there was just like, there's a tiny little snippet of an interview of him talking to like a morning news producer. And what I really noticed about it was the interviewer was not pushing back on any of the claims. It was just like, it just felt like a mouthpiece for some of these claims. Like he said like, yeah, the miracle mud, and here are the things that it cures, and here are the claims that it makes. And instead of having any sort of follow-up questions or like, is there proof? Is there evidence?
Doing
it was just
their
like,
job as a journalist.
Wow, that sounds cool. I'm going to try this out. Do they, we talked about how they have like, scientific words. Does Boo or did Boo try to like, did they do scientific studies? Like, did they use further appeal to science in that way?
Yeah, they had what they called a clinical study, which was the biggest joke of all. Now, I don't know if I'm going to pronounce it correctly, but do you know what like the Kerwillian photography is?
No.
They take, I guess how to explain it. It takes like pictures kind of like moisture, has something to do with moisture in the air.
Okay.
But a lot of like new age pseudoscience-y, like, crystal shops and stuff will have these things advertised where you can get a picture of your aura.
Oh yeah, I have seen that. I've seen that.
Okay.
In fact, the crystal shop that I visited in Sedona had like, do aura photography here.
Oh, okay.
So that's what that is. That's Kerwillian, or I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, photography.
Got it.
Okay.
So their clinical study was based on that.
No.
That's not a study.
And they also like in it, they my friend Amanda did like a really good video like breaking the whole thing down. She's a nurse, so she like understands it way better than I do. But if you like look at it, they give them basically like things that are known, like actually scientifically known, to take out heavy metals from the body before they give them the Boo. And so they tested them beforehand, like their heavy metal levels. And then they give them like a detox, basically. Then they give them the Boo and be like, oh, look, the Boo took the metals out. But it's like, but you just gave them something that's like scientifically proven to take metals out. So how is it the Boo? Like.
Right.
So it was that. And then seeing how their aura changed. That was what the whole clinical study was based on.
Oh no.
There are multiple levels of bunk and that you just described. There's like you're actually testing something else that we already know that works. And then like, why are we taking these photos of people's aura? So okay. That's not a clinical study.
No, it's not.
No.
Can I also ask just one thing I'm curious about as we talk about, you mentioned like the mud baths and everything, and I hadn't thought of that before, but now that you say it, like I kind of feel like I've heard a lot of, I don't know if claims is the right word, but like, oh, mud baths are good for your health, right? Like
I have a mud mask that I put on my face, like to cleanse my face or whatever. Like
there's like mud springs so like it kind of feels like this is maybe this old thing that he's tapping into. Do you have any sense of whether like any of that stuff is like also like is
putting dirt on your body just bad for you across the board, or like, is this Boo specific?
I think the like warm mud baths and stuff, it's just like taking a warm bath, so if you're going in a hot spring or a hot mud bath, it's the heat that's relaxing your muscles, so obviously you're going to feel a little bit better afterwards. So I think that's like the actual science behind it. And it somehow went from that, because he kind of started off just doing like, rubbing it on the body, probably warmed up, so probably people feeling that and getting some relief from a heat treatment. And that somehow turned into like, you can cure COVID and diabetes and cancer with dirt.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Okay,
it's like
that actually makes a lot of sense.
When I, put my mud mask on or my clay mask on, or like go get a facial and they do the, put the mud mask on, I'm not going at it thinking, oh, this is going to detox me. I'm going at it to be like, this is a relaxing act. This is a relaxing ritual. Like that's the benefit that I think is.
And maybe your skin feels a little softer.
Yeah.
Feel relaxed, and that's it,
Sure.
But just, you mentioned curing COVID and diabetes. Like, what are the claims of Boo? Like what do they say it can do? And then my big one is, can we talk about the parasites? Because that's how I came in. The first time I learned about Boo, it was actually last year, right before they shut down. I started getting served the TikTok videos about the Boo baths and and like showing the parasites that were left over in the bath after. Yeah. So
well, that's kind of like how I came across it. Is I was in an anti-MLM group and I saw a post where somebody was talking about like miracle mud, and I'm like, what the fuck is this, and nobody was really interacting with the post, and it was like redacted, but I just like I could see that the post itself had been a public post, so I went in and I like took some of the key terms and I just searched it on Facebook, and I found the person's page, and I'm like looking at it, and it was just post after post after post of these cure-all claims. And I mean, like literally everything you can imagine: COVID, diabetes, cancer, autism. I mean, like you name it.
Right.
They had these on like, I could send you posts so you can see them. They're bad. They're literally everything you could think of. Their big thing was like the detox, and then it turned into the parasites. I don't know how much the company themselves pushed that so much as that the people who were already into the whole parasite type of, woo, got into Boo.
Okay.
And it's a detox. So of course it's detoxing the worms out of you.
And are they saying the worms are like I have a hard time picturing, like I get into a bath and then I get out of the bath and then there's worms in the bath. Like, are they saying these things are coming out of their skin? Are they saying they're coming out of their like mucus membranes? Like, how do the worms come out?
It's a quantum teleportation.
Yes, that's exactly with one of the top Boo.
No. Wait, no. I made that up. Are you serious?
100%. He said that they, like your foot, like the foot baths they were doing mostly in the beginning, that they were quantum tunneling out of your feet. That's why there was no holes for you to see, like where the worm came out of your foot. They quantum tunneled out of your foot. Swear to God.
I sincerely thought that I made that up. I am so sorry.
We should all start with MLM. Like we have the claims that we
you already got it.
Boy, we could make a lot of money and gloriously flame out. Worms are quantum tunneling out of your. I'm going to take a long time to
process that one.
Process that one. Is that the extent of the like appealing to quantum physics that Boo does?
That was very particular of like people who followed one of their top reps, whose name is Adam Ringham, and he's very into like all of that kind of stuff and like energies, and I don't even know. He like mixes all sorts of like Kabbalah type stuff and
gotcha.
It's just his little mix that he does, and then of course these cure-alls, whatever he happens to be selling at the time. And then he also has his own ministry, and it gets weird. It's just weird. If you look at like any individual rep, especially people who are at the top, their profiles themselves are like their own rabbit holes that you could go down into, like Wooville, QAnon, alt-right,
cool,
anti-vax conspiracy world,
Awesome. Yeah, it's all tied together. Yeah. And it's like, what do we say? We usually say it's like a smorgasbord. Like you kind of go to the buffet line and you're like, oh, I want some of that. It's like a little grab bag of your
pick
blue
auras
stuff.
And
so
anti-vax and lizard
energy.
people and energy, and put them all into a bag of dirt, and and that'll be you. Is that something that you think is emblematic of like the folks who got involved with Boo as a whole, or is that just like the top people? Like what would you say the average profile of somebody who like bought into Boo would be?
I would say that's pretty much the profile of a lot of people who get into health and wellness MLMs in general, because any of them that are kind of selling these cure-alls usually are appealing to that demographic the most. And I do think that like the pandemic and so many people becoming afraid of like COVID vaccines and stuff,
right?
And it's obviously way more mainstream than it used to be. I think that brought a lot more people into this kind of stuff, and so there's a very big crossover. Obviously not everybody, but there is a crossover. And then the detox type ones in particular really bring those people in. Like,
right.
I call it the science denialism cult. I think it's a cult in and of itself.
Yeah. It makes a lot of sense. So it sounds like, so our next question was going to be, how did Boo get so popular online? So it sounds like at least part of that answer is COVID-19 really contributed to that. What else was part of that mix of how it got so popular?
I think it's because it was presented kind of like as a new company, and that's like a new theme that we're kind of starting to see with MLMs, is that people started to understand that if you get in early into one of these multi-level marketing companies, you're more likely to build a big downline, make lots of money. But it's like everybody kind of realized it at the same time. So now what seems to be happening is they're jumping from like one startup to the next startup to the next startup, trying to like make it big, but they like flounder, they get shut down like Boo. Or so that's kind of just like the beginning of that, really. I mean, I'm sure it was happening to some extent before, but not in such mass quantities. And Boo had actually been around for a while, but nobody knew about it. And it was like once it kind of got somebody in that kind of group that does that found out about it, it was like everybody else came running over. And I still follow some of those reps, and they just do that. They go from startup to startup to startup to startup, trying to make as much money as they can off the startup.
Interesting. Right. See, that's really interesting you say that, because we've studied a few not obviously not as much as you have, but we've studied a little bit of MLMs for the show, and this is the first I've really heard about like this demographic of people that are actually chasing the pyramid itself. Right. I feel like I hear a lot of like people getting taken in by the claims and the how much money you'll make, and be your own boss and work your own hour, blah 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 blah. But what I haven't heard is like the sort of like naked truth aspect of people like understanding that it's a pyramid. But if I get in early, then I'll be good, right? Like, so it's really, is that like a common thing? Is that more common than I understand, or is that recent?
I didn't notice it happening as much like when I first started, when I was in the anti-MLM movement around 2017, 2018 era. I didn't really see that happening, but I saw it with Boo, and then like right now we've got things like Eillie, and now there's a couple other new ones that are popping up. Wakened is another one, it's like a weight loss one. And like all the people from Boo pretty much went to Eillie, and now a bunch of people from Eillie are now going to Awakened. So it's like it's a select kind of group of people. And I don't know if it's because I never kind of was hyper focused on that specific group of people because they joined these kind of health and wellness type ones before, or like it's becoming more popular. More people realize that you have to get in early if you want to make money. And so it's turned into this thing. But like you said, then you're getting into kind of like your illegal naked pyramid scheme situation, because like with Eillie, for example, they didn't have customers. They were just signing up brand reps, and they ended up foregoing their customer requirements to get commissions.
Oh.
So they were just giving people money for recruiting people into it. And it's like, that's a pyramid scheme. That's an illegal pyramid scheme. There's no product. Yeah. They have a product now, and they've opened up to customers now. But there was like a whole month there that they were operating as a no product pyramid scheme. And that's what happens with the startups. And so it's kind of like who gets in first and who can recruit as many into the startup at first. But then there isn't a customer base because people are starting to understand the MLMs are shit, Right.
It's like the people that are realizing that would be actual customers are no longer interested because they realize it. So you're only left with these like pyramid chasers. That's really interesting.
Yeah. And I think it depends on the product too. People really seem to believe that Boo was going to actually cure them of something. Right. Whereas I don't think with Eillie, for example, since that's kind of the follow-up, I don't think that they really believe it as much, because like when they opened to customers, they were like, oh, we can only, do 1,000 customers a day. And they didn't even get like 900. They got like 800 and something the first day. So there isn't a customer base for that. Right. But with Boo, there was. So people were just buying the dirt and eating it and stuff. But that's also closer to when we're still in lockdown with the pandemic.
Right.
So I think people were more desperate for a cure than they are, say, now.
Right.
Interesting. Right.
You touched on it briefly, but could you talk a little bit more about how you first became aware of Boo? Like what was that first thing that made you go, oh, this is something to keep an eye on?
Like I said, when I went to that person's profile that was selling this magic mud, and I just started scrolling, and it was health claim after health claim after health claim after health claim of, every disease imaginable and every ailment imaginable, which is illegal to do. That's deceptive marketing. You can't market these medical claims like this without having the proper scientific evidence to back it up, which bog mud does not have. And orophotography isn't proving. So
it's not the orophotography, it's a clinical study. What more do you want?
So, that was kind of, and it was kind of a joke at first because it was just this one post, and I showed it, like I admin a bunch of anti-MLM groups. And so I have like a group chat with all the other admins of these groups. And I was like, look at this. They're really eating dirt and thinking it's curing stuff. It was funny, and I thought it was just kind of like a one-off, because sometimes you'll see these MLMs pop up that are like really scammy, say they're going to cure everything, and then they just don't take off. They're just like gone, And so that's kind of what I thought it was at first. And so we were kind of joking about the whole thing with Boo, like, oh, just a joke. And we were even joking like, oh, we should make a group about it. And we were joking about the different names and stuff. That's how we came up with Boo Is Woo. Like it was literally a joke. But then it started popping up more and more people started, posting about it in anti-MLM groups and, people that you follow, if you're following certain reps to kind of see what they're up to, they started joining it. And it was like, oh shit, this is becoming a thing. And I was like, you know what? I am going to make a group. I'm going to do it. And that's how Boo Is Woo was created.
That's interesting.
You don't know about Boo Is Woo.
No, I have not.
I've read about Boo Is Woo, but
this is the first I am hearing of it. But before we do that, though, I will give them credit because at least I feel like eating dirt is probably safer than drinking bleach or turpentine, right?
True.
So like if you got to eat something harmful, at least.
Well, I will say, I feel like I did read, and maybe we can talk about this more later, but I feel like I did read that like eventually activists tested Boo products and found things like lead and arsenic in the dirt.
Whoops.
Is that real?
Yeah.
Okay.
There were a lot of different tests that got done. First, it started with some of the actual reps because there was claims. See, the thing is, when I started Boo Is Woo, like we had a ton of people join. We had 11,000 people try and join in the first month alone.
Wow.
We let in about 7,000 of them, and we got to about 8,500 total. But there's a lot of people who were like very wooey, trying to find out what we were about and kind of like talk about what we were doing to the Boo people. So that's why we didn't let so many in. But about 2 weeks into having the group, one of my friends who also has an anti-MLM page, she found a post saying that the bog that they're getting their dirt from is next to a landfill.
Oh no.
Yeah.
That is disgusting.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah. So basically somebody who is kind of in the whole woo world that's friends with a lot of these people, but isn't into MLMs, so they're anti-MLM, but into woo. They had gotten pitched by a few friends and they started, anti-vaxxers, you gotta look at the ingredients, look at the labels,
Right.
So she started deep diving like the company and where it's located, where's this dirt coming from. And it was actually owned by the land that the bog is on is owned by like a waste management facility.
Oh my God.
And their dump was right next to it. But then they tried to say it wasn't that location. But if you look back at those videos, like the one you were talking about on the news, from even Golden Moore days, Mark will say over and over that it's Castleman or Moose Creek, which is the same thing because the bog is located between Moose Creek and Castleman, Ontario.
Okay.
And I have like a montage that I've made of him just being like, Moose Creek, Castleman, Moose Creek, Castleman. So he's said over and over, and he lives like in Castleman. So it's 10 minutes from his house. And when Golden Moore went public, he signed a 25-year contract with that bog, basically, with the waste management company that owns the bog, which would have put us to, I think it was like 2019. He would have had a contract. So all of the mud over his whole career has been this same bog. Like he had a contract to take the mud out of this bog for 25 years.
Wow.
So this guy knew he was selling a crap product. Like, I feel like that's something we talk about often is like, we have a hard time teasing apart when there is a charismatic leader like this guy or head of somebody who founds an MLM, somebody who founds a cult. It can be hard to differentiate like who actually believes what they're selling and who is just scamming. It seems to me like this guy was just scamming, but what's your take on it?
I've always been kind of iffy on that.
Okay.
Because the way he talks about mud is like, I personally think he's got a bit of like a mud kink or something. I don't know. He really
something's going on. Right.
Something's a little weird there. And like even all these years and stuff, like you find him like online, he writes blogs that are like Mudman, and he has like his license plate on his car says Mudman, and like he's really into mud. I heard like that he went by Mudman for a while, like because we went and like tried to deep dive, like who the hell is this guy? Where did he come from? And we couldn't find anything on him before like 1994. Basically, he just like doesn't exist, even though he's apparently lived in Castleman his whole life.
That's weird.
It's a very small town. And he apparently like helped his mom run her esthetician business, and he had his own massage therapy business. And there's just like no record of it. He went to like 2 different colleges. We couldn't even really find 2. I think we found record of him at 1, but then there was also like a different name that it was under too. And it's like, but then we couldn't find anything on that name. So there's something like really weird about his history. Because most people, there's like some records you can find.
Right.
If you were like an adult.
Sure.
As an adult, there should be some record if you own a business or.
Yeah, business
records
or just, various civic records.
Something.
Yeah, something. Interesting.
Yeah. So he's just kind of a sketchy character to begin with. And then, then he bought this mud and he's just been trying to sell it all this time. And I don't know. It's just, I kind of think he thinks there is something to it. But at first, I had heard from one of my informants, the first informant that I had, his name was Dave, who ended up getting blamed. Mark was convinced everything was Dave. Dave did everything.
Oh, no.
And he thought he even sued Dave. In the lawsuit said that Dave started Boo Is Woo. But I met Dave like 2 or 3 weeks after I had started Boo Is Woo.
Okay.
I found him and contacted him. He was like never an admin in the group or anything. He was just an informant for us.
Okay.
He had been the top rep at Boo. Kind of before they started getting into the whole parasite thing, and like there were still kind of health claims, but it wasn't like quantum tunneling worms out your feet. And
you gotta watch out for those quantum worms.
Quantum worms.
It wasn't like that, and that's kind of, he had started speaking out because they had screwed him out of money at first.
Okay.
But then when he started hearing them talking about like parasites and stuff, he was like a holistic nurse. So it was like he was into woo stuff, but he had a science background. Like he was actually a nurse. So he wasn't like full woo.
Right.
He's like, something was too far for him. And the whole parasite thing was way too far for him. He's like, they're not getting parasites out of their bodies. Like it's bullshit.
Right. Right.
And so when he heard that, and then he also found out about it being near a landfill. And then he's like, he had taken it for like a year or 2 years, something like that himself. So he's like, now he's been eating this bog mud that's next to landfill. That pissed him off too.
Right.
And that's kind of like, ultimately we had the same goal of like exposing the company and, reporting it to regulatory agencies because that's dangerous. So we kind of like teamed up, and he had somebody that was still in the company that was feeding him information. So he was kind of our go-between, but eventually I ended up meeting her. She became my second informant. Her name's Louise, and she's an amazing lady. She really helped with like the class action lawsuit that happened against Boo, and got a lot of information on them from the backside. And like, we kind of had an idea when it was going to shut down. And, she helped incorporate a lot. She didn't actually try to like build up in Boo, but somebody that signed up under her like took off and like way up the pyramid. So it kind of took her up the pyramid too. And so, but then she didn't like stuff that she was seeing. She heard what we were talking about with Boo Is Woo and like on my Facebook page, that it was next to landfill and all that. So she started investigating herself. And she's one of the people who ended up doing one of the tests for the product.
Okay.
There had been one, they usually do like a COA, so a certificate of analysis. There had been one rep that had gotten a COA on the product beforehand just because people were like, oh, but dirt can have heavy metals in it. And so she tested it just to see if there's something wrong with it. And hers did come up with like, every test that I've seen has had high levels of lead and arsenic in it.
Wow.
And some of them like really high potassium, like dangerous levels of potassium as well.
Ugh.
What ended up happening is then Louise ended up getting testing done. She actually was like, there's all these claims, and she went to that Adam guy who ended up being like one of the tippy top, and this other woman, Carrie Ann, she was another tippy top. Like Adam and Carrie Ann were pretty much the top ones when Boo came crumbling down.
Okay.
And she had gone to both of them. Carrie Ann was the one that was under Louise, who had kind of like built up the pyramid. And she's like, there's people making these claims. We should just test it ourselves. Let's get testing done. Then we have it, and we can be like, no, there's nothing. It's clean. Let's prove it. And so they all put money in, like thousands of dollars, to have it tested. And they tested a bunch of other companies' fulvic acid as well. So to compare it to like the competing products. And it came back that it had high levels of lead and arsenic. So
jeez.
Was Mark on board with this testing, or was this just something that these folks were doing with their own time and money?
I think he actually kind of argued them about it, because I know Louise and him got into a big argument because she confronted him with the test results. And was like, there's high levels of lead and arsenic in here. And he's like, no, it's a thin range, and every batch is a little bit different. And he's like, that's perfectly fine. It chelates heavy metals. And she's like, no, no, you're poisoning people and you need to tell people that this is in the and they got the whole thing, and she has a recording of it somewhere too.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's part of it where I'm like, maybe he was just a scammer, because I've heard that recording, and it's like she's telling him like, I have third party certificate analysis testing.
Yeah,
these are the levels. That's dangerous. You need to like stop selling this or tell people, or you need to do something. And he's like, oh no, and he's just gaslighting her and trying to twist it around, like you're just trying to create issues that don't need to be there. And it's like, okay, well, you sound like every other MLM scammer, head of an MLM that I've heard of. So it's like, I don't know. That's where I get confused, because it's like I've seen both sides of them, where he's obsessed with the mud, and then where he's like just being a typical scammer, charlatan.
Right. Yeah. What makes me, that reminds me of, is like when you were saying how he signed a 25-year contract for the property.
Mm-hmm.
It makes me think that like that's just going to warp your thinking. Like, even if he was a true believer at one point, and then maybe if he didn't have that, like that tremendous weight of I have to make this work because I'm so in deep on this. I wonder how that he would have maybe responded differently, right? Like, maybe he would have responded to those tests in a more reasonable manner if he wasn't like, I gotta make this work.
The mud has to work.
The mud must work because I signed a 25-year contract.
Yeah. Well, I mean, at the point we came in, his contract would have technically been up. Whether he had renewed it or not, because we're talking, this is like 2020, 2021, where booze getting really popular.
Okay.
Whereas the contract should have been up in 2019, but he was still getting it from somewhere. And I mean, you can tell that was true though, still, because he started off with Golden Moor and he was just selling it as like, like a mud mask or like mud baths for spas and stuff like that. And it's like, I don't know why he didn't just stay with that, because there's a market for that, especially if you're talking about he started this in, well, he claims it's his whole like Germany story that was like in the late 80s,
right?
That he started with all that stuff. So back then there probably wasn't a huge market for like mud bath products. So there was something to be built on. And he apparently did. I mean, the company got bought out and became public, and, so it's like people saw value in it. But then he tried to turn Golden Moor into an MLM, but then he sold the MLM off when the company went public.
Okay.
It was like another company. You constantly see that like dichotomy with him, where he's like very invested and he's obviously trying to like start these business and he's passionate about mud, but then it's like, is he just like, like you said, Chris, that he's, just invested in it, and then it's like he doesn't care what anybody says, or he's tried to start MLMs with it, and people don't start MLMs unless they know they can make tons of money starting an MLM,
right,
and doing it off the backs of all the people who are losing money in them. So there has to be a questionable moral compass happening with people who start MLMs. Like, I just don't believe like a good person starts an MLM.
Yeah, there's always going to be, I think that dichotomy is a really good analysis. There's always going to be a little bit of both. It seems like there's they have to ride this line of true believer and just straight up grifter.
Yeah.
That's really interesting to analyze. And I feel like we're going to be talking about that forever, of like what kind of person starts an MLM, like what goes into that.
Yeah. And I feel like it like blends together too sometimes.
Yeah.
With Mark, it's like, I mean, he only really tried to start one with Golden Moor, and, it didn't last long. So, maybe he just thought that was a bad idea. And then people approached him. He's like, oh, I've kind of done it before. And these people are successful and, they have a history of being in multi-level marketing. Maybe this can actually work. So I don't know that I would say he's like I think Carlo, that was like the president of the company. He has a history of being in multi-level marketing.
Interesting.
He's one of these like lifelong jumps from company to company kind of, but like in corporate level. Because if you look at MLMs, they're actually very like incestuous. So like somebody will work in corporate at this one, and then they jump and they start their own over here, and then bring in somebody from this MLM to work for them. And they're all kind of weird and connected, because there's these people who know that they can make a lot of money by being at the top of them. In the corporate, I'm not even talking about like in the pyramid themselves, but like being in corporate, whether CEOs, CFOs, presidents, founding members, donators and stuff like that. So, and those people I feel are more like, they know what's up. They just know that they can make bank off it, and they just don't give a shit.
Right. So you talked a little bit about the informants that you had and like some recordings that were made and the tests, but could you talk a little bit more about the anti-boo activism that went on in Boo is Woo? Like, yeah, what tactics did you use to kind of help take this spoiler alert, the company's gone. I think we talked about it a little bit to help take the company down. We can talk about exactly what the downfall was like, but I'm interested to know, like, what exactly you guys did as activists to really dig into this one.
I mean, it's kind of the same thing I've been doing since I started activism, but I think people just heard the message with Boo because they were so outraged that people were eating this dirt that was coming up, that it's next to a landfill and it's got heavy metals in it, and they're saying parasites are coming out of them. And I think it was just like the perfect thing for people to kind of like, for it to click, because I know I've been saying it for years that if you see false health claims, report them to regulatory agencies, because if we get enough reports in, that's going to flag it to those regulatory agencies that there's something going on. That's how it works, like with the FDA. When they start getting a whole bunch of reports that people are having, adverse reactions to some homeopathic product. Like I remember, I'm just thinking of like the teething gel that the little kids had that had like belladonna in it.
Oh God.
Oh Jesus.
Yeah.
Oh no.
And it's like there was too much in it because homeopathy is supposed to have like nothing in it. It's nothing.
Right.
But somehow like the belladonna was like the ingredient that they diluted, but for some reason some belladonna was like actually getting into it. It was like a homeopathic baby teething gel.
Oh boy.
Yeah. So like that's kind of the kind of things that I think of as like, there's a product and then, people are getting sick or hurt by it. And so a lot of reports go in. And so that's kind of what you have to do. You have to get their attention. You have to get a lot of reports in for them to even kind of look at it and consider it. If there's 20 people doing it, they're like, it's not a big deal. It's not hurting enough people. Even if it's hurting people, until it's reported and they see that it's hurting people and enough people basically getting hurt, then it's an issue. And the same, they need to see that there's like a consistency to the claims that are being made with the FTC, that they are consistently deceptively marketing these products. So it's not like, one off here, somebody says, oh yeah, I had a cut on my arm and it healed it in a day, like they don't give a shit about that. But when you have people being like, oh, it helps with autism, and a lot of people are saying that same thing about this one product, and people are reporting that because they don't just know it, you have to report it,
right?
And then you might get some action on it. So that was kind of the whole push, is like, we can see this is dangerous. They need to at least look into it, because the government can obviously look into things way better than we can as just, the average person online trying to dig for stuff. So it's like, if people are eating dirt, that's dangerous. They're making these health claims, that's illegal. This is coming from a landfill, that's dangerous. Some of the stuff that was processed at that landfill was not great either. You're talking like cows that had mad cow disease and stuff.
God.
No.
Yeah.
That's where you get the parasites. You're going to get the parasites from the poo.
Yeah. So like, and other, just like, there's a whole picture you could see on like Google Maps where they had like a whole pile of like tires being burnt. And it's like, they might be doing that safely, but is it getting into the land? Because they usually buy land and it's like, okay, if they mess up that land.
Right.
But you're not expecting that land to be taken and eaten, so it's like.
Right.
And any runoff from rain and stuff that's getting into bogs, because that's literally kind of what bogs are. They're these stagnating waters that have been sitting there, so they're gonna get runoff. They're usually at a low point where the ice age was and where there was like a bunch of snow and stuff had sat and created a divot, and so things are going to run off into the bog. So it's just
it's really gross.
It's a lot of dangerous kind of stuff that could be happening that need to be looked into. Just for people's safety, not even to be like, oh yeah, we got an MLM down, but like people are getting hurt by this, people are having reactions. I mean, how safe can be eating dirt all the time be? Like how, like, you know what I mean? Like even if you just went outside and ate your dirt right now.
Right.
I mean, I feel like there's a lot of things that could be in there. I mean,
I wouldn't want to do it. Like I see the dogs that walk in my neighborhood and like, I mean, I live on a busy street. Like I don't know what's going into that.
Yeah.
And so to buy it from, you're getting a bag from a company, like I don't actually know what they're doing to make that dirt safe. And then they're not actually doing anything to make the dirt safe.
Right.
Yeah.
And I mean, a lot of the reasons that we actually don't have parasites like issues in countries like the United States is because we have, this whole concept of like hygiene and cleanliness and, proper sewer systems and things. So it's like, if you're eating the dirt, you're eating the stuff that you've like has stopped us from getting parasites, has stopped us from getting like tetanus and stuff, like
right.
that's where that comes from too. You know what I mean? There's so many things that can be in the earth that are dangerous, but we've created this hygiene system in our country that's like, we know not to do that. So why are we doing like, okay, if you're 2 and you're eating dirt, but grown adults, it's like you don't know all the things that can be in dirt.
Right.
It's like the raw water trend, It's like we're like seems like there's several things where we've decided to like forego the things that are even like fluoridated water, honestly. Like it kind of goes back to that OG thing.
There's like this mentality that like, well, if it's outside of the systems that we've created, if it's outside of these hygiene systems or the sewer systems or this, like if it's outside of those systems, it's better for us somehow. It like goes back to
naturalist fallacy.
Yeah, naturalist. So that's better for you. No, it's not, because that's what's going to actually make you sick.
Yeah.
Like, it's really good to point out.
It comes down to like an innate fear of authority, in my opinion, because they're terrified of the government or the lizard people or the Illuminati or whoever they're making their bad guy at the moment. But and I think that's how a lot of people get into this, is through fear mongering. And that's kind of like why I think it's a cult. Like science denialism is a cult, and it has many kind of charismatic leaders within it, depending on what area that you're in. Because like, the anti-vaxxers, they have their leaders.
There's a whole pantheon.
Wakefield and Sears and all of them. And then, like every kind of little group has got theirs. So it's like a mega cult because there's like multiple cult leaders in their own little offshoots of it.
Right.
And it's dangerous. It's all around. It's dangerous, and it's, you can figure that out with science, but people don't want to listen to science, and it's scary because they think it's all a big conspiracy.
Yeah.
So would you say with Boo, then the thing that really took them down was it's less about the pyramid and more about the health claims and the dangerousness of what they were doing and the actual tests that were run, analysis of the actual composition of the dirt?
Yeah, for them, it was absolutely the health claims. That's what got it. Because the first thing that happened was we got Health Canada, the first one that did anything about it.
Okay.
That we knew of, that like made a statement that they were recalling the product. But because the FDA and the FTC were investigating them, but they didn't make an announcement about it at first. But eventually they did, and they were investigating them. We found out that there was a hold on their product from the FDA. So we had a pretty good idea the FDA was starting to investigate them too. But they were still somehow managing to get product like into the country. So because it comes from Canada. So they're getting into the United States with an FDA hold on the product. So that's illegal too. So there's all sorts of weird illegal things happening with this company. Eventually then the FTC had sent them a warning letter, but that happened kind of at the same time they like shut down. They got a warning letter very soon around that time. But then the FDA came out and said, they'd been investigating that they're recalling the product, that they had done their own testing, and there was high levels of lead and arsenic in the product.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
So what was the thing that actually did, like, why did they shut down when they finally did?
I think it's because they knew that they were getting investigated, that it was going to be recalled by the FDA, and they got a warning letter from the FTC. So they knew it was going down. They're going to get shut down. So they just kind of closed it before they got in trouble type of thing.
How did the shutdown of the company play out? Like, what was that day like when they actually were kaput?
Nobody kind of believed it at first because they just like sent out an email, and apparently the email wasn't supposed to be sent out at that time, or So they all got this, and then the Boo reps are like, what is this? What's going on? Like, is the company shut down? Like, what's going on? And somebody's like, oh no, Boo's email got hacked and somebody's just messing around. And then it came out, no, that email is real. It just got sent out earlier than it was supposed to. And
interesting.
Yeah. So that was we're all confused because like, we can only really go off what like the reps are the ones getting the email, So, and they're conspiracy theorists. So they're like, oh my God, somebody hacked the system. And,
right.
So it's like, we're like, okay, but like, are they shut? Because this says that they're shutting down. So like, is this true? Is this real? And they're like, oh no, the haters hacked us. And we're like, okay, but we're the haters.
We didn't do it.
We're the haters and we didn't do this. So is this real? And then we got good confirmation that it was real, and that was it. They just closed up shop.
Interesting.
what
So
did-
sort of sudden like that.
What did that feel like once it sunk in and it really, you all knew that like, oh, it's over? What did that feel like? Like you took down a pretty big deal company. Like, what did that feel like?
I mean, kind of just in shock for a while because it was like, damn, we actually did it. Because when you've been doing this for, multiple years on end, and even just trying to get people interested in reporting
Sure.
these health claims and trying to get them to understand that, these are pyramid schemes, that they're cults, and that this is particularly dangerous for the health and wellness ones, and that, we can actually do something about this. We can go and report. Everybody has the ability to do it. You just go online and file a report. You see something sketchy online, take a screenshot of it and send it to regulatory agencies. There's nonprofit organizations like Tina who will take in reports as well. And then they'll send those reports. They collect them for certain companies, not just MLMs either. They'll take them, collect them, and then they'll have their lawyers kind of like send a letter, sending a warning to the FTC or the FDA, warning about the product. So it has a little bit more weight behind it. And it's like, there are options out there for what, any one person can do something, and if we all kind of do it, we might actually get things like Boo happening where we take them down. But we need that collaboration. People have to be willing to spend the extra minute or two to report a health claim.
Right.
Right. But it's really inspiring though. Like it's really nice to hear, like, because I feel like you don't hear that very often, particularly with MLMs or even wellness companies where the consumers actually win a battle. And it's nice to hear that, like you said, with some collaboration and just, like a short amount of time to report something, that it can be done. I think that'll be really inspiring for our listeners. And I think that that's like an easy action item for them too, right? Like, what can I do? Like, I'm just listening to it's about filing the report. It sounds like they don't even need to start a blog. They don't need to, like all they need to do is just, if they see something, if you see something, say something, right?
Yeah.
But it
And
sounds like that's what it is.
I get credited a lot of times with like taking Boo down because I started Boo as Woo. But like it would not have just happened if it was me reporting. It was everybody that was reporting these claims got Boo taken down. It was the whole community within, not even just Boo as Woo, but there was other groups that were like more of the pseudoscience type people that had come up that were fighting Boo. There was 2 of those as well. Dave had his own group, and there's a completely separate one. And they were all reporting too because they saw that we were doing it, and they're like, oh yeah, that's a good idea. Let's report it. And it was kind of even the collaboration of like the Woo side and like the pro science side, like working together to get this company down, because we all recognized that this was dangerous, because that's how bad Boo was, that even people who are into that kind of stuff were like, okay, this is a little too much for me too.
Wow. That collaboration is also really nice to see. Like, that's part of why we really wanted to talk about Boo on our show. Is like, yeah, we've talked about LuLaRoe, and we've talked about some of these companies that like will even get lawsuits. We'll even have these big, explosive documentaries, and it's like, oh, we all know it's bad, but the company's still around. It was really nice to see Boo is gone. Yeah. And it was because of, people actually filing those reports and doing the activism like you've been doing. And so then to hear that there was a collaborative effort amongst folks who often have really diametrically opposed ideologies.
That is nice.
It's just nice.
Yeah, it was nice.
Yeah, I mean, my informants were all on that side, because they were all people who had worked in Boo, and the people who got the class action started. That was the other thing that probably led to them shutting down too, is because they have like an FTC warning letter coming in. They have the FDA investigating and holding their product. Now there's class action setting up. But like the class action, that was all like people who kind of woke up and saw that there was a problem with Boo, trying to find victims who had been hurt by Boo and like getting that class action together. Yeah. So like that was all them. That was people who were into all that stuff, trying to, they were doing consumer advocacy.
That's great.
That.
Yeah,
and
class actions are company killers.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Let's get more of them.
Yeah. We get one on Young Living right now, the essential oils.
Is that what's next for you? Is
yeah, that's what I've been.
They've been around a while, right?
Oh yeah, for I think nearly 30 years.
Wow.
But yeah, there's a lot going on with them. That's a whole thing. If you're into MLMs and Woo stuff.
You've mentioned a little bit about like where some of the top sellers went. Some of them have jumped ship to other MLMs or have gone off and done their own thing. Do we know anything about what's going on with Mark himself? Like what's he done since the fallout?
Pretty much just gone into hiding.
Interesting. Okay.
He's gone out of the like public eye pretty much. I mean, he was even apparently like hiding in his car when they were trying to serve him
Wow.
papers for the class action in his Mudman car. But what ended up happening is, I believe, from the evidence that I've seen, that him and maybe Carlo together are kind of like white labeling it to another MLM company.
Oh boy.
So I don't think Boo's like actually gone.
Interesting. Okay.
Do you expect Mark will crop back up somewhere at some point, like just resurface?
I mean, I think he'll stay behind the scenes, but I think he'll definitely still have his hands in it. Like, that's what I think what he's doing right now. It's a company called Longevity, and they're known for kind of like picking up what's left over from these like collapsing MLMs. They'll like buy out the rights to their products, to their email lists, and
wow,
that's what they did with Boo. But like the packaging is like pretty much identical. It looks like it was like leftover Boo like packaging, just they changed it to Longevity on there, and all
like
the sellers are saying,
yeah, it's MLM recycling.
yeah. So all of the like, same people went over to it. They're all Longevity reps now, on top of other MLMs, because they're, rarely just in one. And they say it's like 99.9% the same. It came from the same source. Boo had a testing, because Mark was getting sick of like everybody coming out with their own testing and be like, there's heavy metals or heavy metals. So he got testing done apparently to prove that there wasn't. And he has this like 93-page safety report, but it never got released because the company got shut down. But lo and behold, Longevity pops up and they've got a 90-something page safety report. And I even have like evidence of Carrie Ann and Adam, so those two top reps, when Boo went down, saying that it is Boo's safety report.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I've actually been talking with one of the writers over for Tina, Truth in Advertising, that nonprofit that I was talking about before.
Right.
And I'm trying to like show him the evidence, but they got really kind of scared that people were watching. So when they first announced that Longevity was doing it, they were like, oh, it's 99.9% the same, and it's the same source and all this stuff. And then I don't know if they got told to like shut up, or they just got paranoid, but they like deleted all that stuff. And now as time has kind of progressed, they're starting to kind of admit it again. So I'm kind of like trying to convince Tina, like, no, it's the same shit. Like it's the same, they're saying it's the same stuff. And, but it's like proving that to them so that they can do it. And it's like, then they got to try and prove it to the FDA and the FTC to then maybe hopefully get it shut down. So it's a lot of just screenshotting stuff and looking back in old screenshots from Boo days and stuff, trying to find stuff. But there's a connection with Longevity and Boo already. So when Boo knew that they were starting to get in trouble from us reporting, they had like a compliance crackdown where they told reps, like, you got to stop doing this shit. You can't be saying it cures everything.
Oh, wow.
Didn't work. They continued doing it.
Of course.
But when that happened, they had a lot of MLMs will have a compliance agent to like help keep the reps in line. I don't know why they have them, because none of them seem to be able to do their job. But they ended up having Longevity's compliance agent come in. So like, why is Longevity loaning their compliance agent to Boo unless there's some kind of connection there? So, and then they happened to buy the whole email list for the customers and the brand partners. And then they offered them to join Longevity free, but they'll get them like free product back.
Okay. So they clearly had a relationship going.
Yeah.
Question I actually meant to ask up front, and I totally forgot. Boo stands for Black Oxygen Organics, correct?
Correct.
What the hell is Black Oxygen?
Well, I mean, it's gone through very many names, but there's always been kind of, after Golden Moor, there's always been some kind of combination of like black and organics or oxygen or some kind of, so, just because it's like a black powder when it's dehydrated.
Okay.
Because it's like old, thick bog mud. It's not just your regular mud, it's bog mud.
Bog mud.
Yeah, so it looks black when it's dehydrated. So, and then organics is just, a marketing term pretty much, because I mean, it's not like you're growing it. So like, what's organic? You know what I mean? It's like calling like sea salt organic. It's like, but like that's an inorganic compound. But
right.
Gluten-free.
Yeah.
Burnt tires.
Right.
So I think I know what you're going to say, but we got to get this one for our listeners. Cult are just weird. We try to figure out if things are cults or if they're just weird. Is Boo a cult, or is it just weird?
I think it's a cult.
I think that we would agree.
All right.
Based on everything you've told us today, it's an MLM, so it's going to hit those points.
I think they're all cults. They're commercial cults.
Mark certainly sounds like a charismatic leader. Certainly sounds like there's a whole lot of anti-factuality going on.
Commercial cults. Commercial cults aren't necessarily exactly the same as religious cults because they don't have to have a charismatic leader. They tend to, I actually don't think that Mark was that charismatic at all. He's a little bit awkward, and I mean, we have jokes about like even how he would pronounce words. Like our big one that we have in like the admins of Boo's Woo was how he used to say libido because he said libido. So we even have like a meme of him just going libido. But yeah, I don't think he was actually that charismatic. But that's the thing with commercial cults is it's not necessarily like a religious one. They don't have to have that figurehead. It's kind of there is a hierarchy to it. So there are like people following certain leaders and stuff. And like in a multi-level marketing, it's obviously like the uplines,
right?
The CEOs and stuff, but they might not be worshipped in the same aspect as like a religious cult would.
Right.
It's they're kind of worshiping like the MLM itself, the mindset and all that kind of, thing, the dream, the business opportunity, the fantasy. It's not necessarily a leader. And you see that in different ones, because there's many different kinds of cults. There's political, there's religious and spiritual, and MLM just happen to be a commercial one. You do often see like some of the CEOs and stuff do get kind of worshipped in a way, and are very charismatic, because I think it's the same kind of abuse tactics that are used, in all cults, regardless of what it is. And so the people who would start an MLM might be naturally gifted with those manipulation tactics, and so then it does kind of get that almost religious overtone. That's what you're seeing with like Gary Young and Young Living, is thinking he's a prophet. Like there's obviously some kind of like religious crossover happening, and people did kind of worship him.
But I do like the point that you make though about the like in a commercial cult like an MLM, the charismatic leader like is the money, it is the dream, it is the promises, like that is the inspiration that ordinarily you get from maybe a particularly charismatic person.
And just the whole culture of it, like that whole boss babe, tribe or hun bro, we call them the dude bros, their crypto schemes and stuff, like
hustle culture, baby.
Yeah, exactly. But it's MLM specific, and people get so obsessed with it. It's a lifestyle. It's not just a company,
I think that covers all of our questions today. So I guess our final one is just, where can our audience find out about more of you and your anti-MLM work? Like, what are you working on next? Where are you on social media?
I'm on all the platforms. I probably hang out on Facebook and Instagram the most, which it's Mombi #anti-MLM on Facebook. And it's like at MLM So it's like Mombi, and of the M in Mombi is like the MLM part too.
Love it.
But you can probably just look it up as Mombi #anti-MLM on Instagram and Facebook. And I also have a website that I have like a blog and a bunch of resources. Like if you'd like to report MLMs, I have a whole page on there that you can report resources to other anti-MLM creators, and just, articles and other resources if you just want to learn about multi-level marketing, a whole bunch of stuff on there, even anonymous posting. So if you know something about an MLM and you don't want your identity to be out there, you can come over and make a blog post yourself and
awesome.
Give us the dirt.
Dirt. I see what you did there. Well, Kira, thank you so much for your time today. You got to learn all about Boo. I got to learn so much stuff that I didn't know. And our audience now knows not to spend $110 on a bag of dirt that you're supposed to eat. Don't eat it.
Yeah, don't eat dirt, kids.
Don't eat dirt.
Stay in school. Don't eat dirt.
And thank you for having such a heavy hand in taking down Boo. The more these companies that can go down, just the better.
Yeah, seriously. It's very inspiring. Like when you do, I'm sure you know more than us, but like you do a lot of these stories about these MLMs, and sometimes it kind of feels like you're just pissing into the wind a little bit. Right. And so to hear one that's like, no, that one actually got shut down that's super valuable.
Yeah. I mean, that was really the first one that the anti-MLM movement took down, like
that's great.
It's amazing.
We can do it. It was like, that's always what I've been trying to like, I want people to know that they can do it too.
Yeah. It can be done. Yeah.
You just sitting at your house, like average person can do something. If we all do it, then things happen.
Yeah.
Like shutting down Boo.
So that was the interview. What do you think of Black Oxygen Organics, or Boo, now that we've dug into all the dirty details?
I think that I am upset that you didn't let me ask the question, boo-hoo. You forbade me from saying boo-hoo. I thought that was a great question. I don't know what was the problem with it. I really don't. It was a very good interview. I thought that she was excellent. I thought she hit all the right notes for me in terms of like, you know, being skeptical of pseudoscience and wellness, but like still working with people towards a cause, even if they don't necessarily exactly align with her worldview. And it also was inspiring. Like, I think that the idea that actually, oh shit, we sometimes can actually fight back against this bullshit is rare. It feels very rare. Right. It feels like water in a desert these days. So I thought it was really nice to hear that, and also how actionable it is actually, even for people who aren't like a consumer advocate, who aren't people that, you know, she like has a blog and she's getting contacts and she's like doing all this stuff. She described, you don't have to do all that. You just have to, if you encounter something that's like, hey, this is a false claim, this is something that could be potentially harmful, just make the regulatory body, submit a complaint to the regulatory bodies that it's relevant for, like the FDA or the FTC or something like that. So anyway,
there's lots of different ways to be a helper, and this is just one of the ways.
Yeah, overall good.
So we've got one more thing to do before we can officially wrap up the episode.
What's that, Kayla?
I mean, we talked about it in the interview, but obviously we have to talk about it amongst ourselves as well. Is Black Oxygen Organics, is Boo a cult according to our
criteria? Yeah, Kayla, that's why the people are here. That's
why we're here.
That's the whole shtick.
The whole shtick of the show. So the first one, charismatic leader. I know that our definition of charismatic leader differs slightly from Kira's definition. I think by our definition, yeah, we got one. Well,
I don't know. Like we have one, but I wouldn't say that means that it's like it scores highly on that criteria, right? Like I think that it's present, but it sounds like the guy was not necessarily super charismatic. It sounds like he had like the right product for the right audience, and let the sort of, the dream of it all, right, of the of making it with the MLM kind of carry the day.
But so there were a lot of like charismatic acolytes. It seems like the top sellers were kind of picking up some of the slack that maybe Mark himself may not have had.
Yeah, potentially. I still wouldn't say it's as high as like Mary Kay or some other groups that we've done. Like sure. But it's present, but not high for me.
So then how about expected harm?
It sounds like that was actually the thing that got it taken down. It sounds like the main thing that got it.
You're eating lead. Yeah. You're eating arsenic.
Right. Again. So don't do that. Don't drink lead and arsenic.
That's harmful.
We already get enough lead in this country in our drinking water.
We don't need more lead. We already are chock full of microplastics.
All right. So high on that.
Presence of ritual. People were taking baths, saying there's worms in them, quantum tunneling. I mean, like, I feel like we didn't necessarily
quantum worms,
too
tunneling
much
worms
into it, but like we know with MLMs what the ritual looks like. It's the parties, it's the Facebook lives, it's the Instagrams, it's the words that are used. Like, I mean, we talked with Kira about the different like
boss babe
terminology, like and quantum tunneling. Come on.
Yeah, I think I've seen like a Star Trek episode about quantum tunneling worms, actually. That sounds familiar.
Oh, God. I think that's what Dune's about, right? So, high.
High, okay, yeah.
What about niche within society? This is the toughest. Is it or is it
dirt
not?
Drinking.
I don't know. I know
it's niche.
But it became it got real popular real quick. But I guess even
amongst, it's
not Avon, it's not
right, exactly. If we were sitting here talking about like Amway, then Amway, not niche. This is like, I had never heard of Boo,
right,
and I'm semi-involved in this space thanks to this podcast. I'd say it's pretty niche.
All right. What about anti-factuality?
Oh, yeah. Rife.
High. Again,
rife with anti-factuality.
quantum tunneling worms.
No, that's true. Those exist. It's everything else.
I guess it's also, to be fair, the quantum tunneling came from one of the sellers. A lot of the claims, even like the craziest claims, like it'll cure your cancer, came from sellers, not from like the people themselves. But the company itself claiming that like this dirt is going to make you stand up from your wheelchair if you are a wheelchair user. It's like, that's anti-factuality.
And the wide variety of the claims. So like the one true cure thing,
right?
Bam, right there scores it high in this category. But then you also have the whole like did tests on the quality of the soil
auras.
that they are suggesting that you eat. And so that, that also factors in, right? There's some anti-factuality there, or they're trying to hide
science.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So how about life consumption? I feel like this one we're also going to have to rely a little bit upon our knowledge of how MLMs operate specifically, rather than this one in particular.
Dirt consumption.
Maybe
just consumption if you're eating dirt. I don't know how you get consumption.
I feel like with something like this, it's an MLM. We know how MLMs operate. They force you to turn your entire life over to the quote-unquote job. Your entire identity is becoming a seller. All you talk about, everybody in your life, is turned into a potential recruit. Like, life consumption, I cannot picture an MLM, particularly one that rose this quickly and died this quickly. I cannot picture it not having life consumption be, like, the thing.
Probably. Yeah, we didn't really talk about that, so this is all just sort of like speculation based on knowing the industry, like knowing what direct selling is like. My guess is that it's high, but I also don't. This is like a bit of a shaky one for me since we didn't like explicitly talk about this one. Yeah.
Yeah. But again, people are taking TikToks of themselves taking baths, and like there was a lot of this. We didn't really get into this in the show, but there was a lot of, if you read about this, a lot of the articles, and I remember a lot of the TikToks and a lot of the Facebook stuff, the people who were selling Boo, the part of the way that they sold it was by showing how often they like used it on their kids and with their pets and with their partners. Like a lot of it was building building their lives around their usage of Boo.
Ugh.
And again, we didn't really slot this into the episode. If you want to learn more about that, obviously we're always going to link to the news articles that we used for this. But there was particularly an article, like an NBC did an article that I drew a lot of this research from, and these people were in Facebook groups, and these people were showcasing Boo being like front and center in their lives, and like changing their lives and whitening their teeth and losing their weight, and like, oh, my kid was not sleeping and was like doing really poorly in school and acting out, and then I started doing his regular Boo baths, and I was a totally different child, and I feed it to my dog. Like, it's very much about that whole MLM identity thing.
Okay, that kind of speaks to what you were saying before, where it just kind of like seeps into every aspect of your life so that you can sell.
Right.
So maybe this is high then.
So how do you think we score on dogmatic beliefs?
This is another unknown for me. It's definitely present to some degree because of the one true cure thing. Mm-hmm. I feel like one true cure carries with it an implicit like, and by the way, this is the only one, right?
Sure.
If this is the one true cure, it's like kind of implying that other curatives, other types of medicine are don't work, right? Like especially with parasites, right? That's part of the parasitology. That's not a good word for it. The parasite woo that's out there, the parasite wellness woo, will say effectively that every single malady can be traced to parasites, so that's why you got to drink bleach,
right?
Because you'll kill the parasites and you'll cure anything you got because everything's from parasites. So that feels a little dogmatic to me because it's definitely like black and white there. But other than that, I'm not sure. I
feel like some dogma was maybe coming in. We talked to Kira about some of these soil tests that were being done by some of the top sellers, and we talked about how Mark was like, nah, don't, like he was anti that happening, and that feels a little bit like, well, if getting outside counsel is not okay here, that feels kind of dogmatic.
Yeah, I agree.
So I think at least medium to high.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, something like 78%, 78.2.
78.2.
Wait, were you going to say 0.2? Or
I was going to say 0.3, so I changed it the last second.
Okay, so that was a weird coincidence.
Yeah.
Okay.
Chain of victims.
Well,
It's an MLM.
MLM is where we get this one
It's
from.
an MLM, and especially in this one where it's like people are using it on their kids. Like that's also a victim chain. Like,
Yeah.
I guess the kids aren't victimizing someone, but like somebody getting recruited and then like harming their kids with it.
Yeah.
There's a chain there. Recruiting your friends. We know how these MLMs work.
Yeah, MLM is literally where this criterion came from. It was the idea that it's hard to differentiate sometimes between the victim and the victimizer because you get caught in this recruitment chain. So
Right.
that's going to be high for this because of the pyramid nature.
So then last but not least, we have, is it safe or unsafe to exit? I don't really know.
Yeah, I don't know on that one either.
I didn't get the sense from our conversation, and I didn't get the sense from like any of the research that I've done that there's like a shunning practice or anything like that any more than there is in like kind of any other MLM.
Yeah.
And this also it was very like brief in the life of an MLM company.
Mm-hmm.
It rose very quickly from the time that it became like the boo that we're discussing to the time that it was taken off the market. I don't even know if there was time necessarily to like cultivate those kinds of practices. I
Yeah.
feel like this is maybe a question we should maybe follow up with Kira about to see like, oh, is there like shunning going on? I didn't get the sense of that.
Yeah.
I did actually, you know what? I also want to contradict myself. I want to quote that NBC article that I read to help us with this.
Okay.
So in the article, and this article is called Magic Dirt, How the Internet Fueled and Defeated the Pandemic's Weirdest MLM, and it's written by Brandy Zadronsny. It talks about a woman named Monica Wong who learned about Boo and then like from Facebook or whatever, and then started using it as a product. And like, you know, she's seeing everybody on this Facebook group that she joined. She joined this Facebook group. And everybody's being like, oh my God, Boo is just like changing my life. My skin is clear. I don't have any more worms. Like everything is great. And then she was like, this is not helping me. And actually my tummy kind of hurts. I'm not going to use it anymore.
I'm not going to eat dirt anymore. It hurts my tummy.
Let me quote you this paragraph.
Okay.
Wong quit taking Boo and told the head of her Facebook group, a higher ranked seller who earned commission off Wong's participation, about her new pains. When asked why she didn't alert others, Wong said the group administrators, Boo sellers themselves, censored the comments to weed out anything negative. Quote, they'd never let me post that, she said. And then the article kind of goes on to talk about like the true believers, the acolytes, like what these Facebook groups are filled with. So I feel like that's not quite the same as like it's an unsafe exit, but it definitely seems, maybe this goes back to dogma. It's unsafe to criticize, or it's unsafe to share your true experience. It does feel though that this woman had to exit. She felt pressure to exit quietly.
Right. And Kira mentioned how like a few of her informants also didn't have great relationships with the company, and like that's kind of, although I guess the stuff that had driven them to leave happened prior to them leaving, not as a result of their leaving.
Right.
So I don't know if that quite fits in, but I certainly think that you're right that like unsafe to criticize is like synonymous with unsafe to leave. So it sounds like there's definitely
There's some
of that going on.
Yeah, some of that going
but
on.
but you're right with like the speed of the rise and fall and sort of like the locust like nature that Kieran mentioned was, you know, where like all these MLM people like descend upon this
Right.
one product and then like, oh, guess we can't. That's, you know, we've sucked that dry.
Sucked that to a husk.
Let's go to the next one.
That's so fucked.
I know that does make it sound like they didn't really have that much time to build up this like, you know, cult like nature of, you know, say only nice things and shun people who leave.
Right.
So low.
So then,
Ish.
is it a cult or is it just weird?
Yeah, I mean it's high across the board except for that last one. So
It's a cult.
yeah,
It
it's a
was
cult.
answered in the interview. It's answered here. Like any other MLM we've come across, is a cult.
You said come across.
Stop.
But she said come.
I'm leaving this podcast now. Do you got anything else
I've
to
been
say
looking. No, I've just.
about
Now
Boo?
that I've done the Beavis and Butthead thing, I am good to go.
We're out.
That's it.
That's the end of this episode. If you want to know more about how you can participate in these consumer report type actions, we will be sure to link it in this episode. Otherwise, this is Kayla.
And this is Chris.
And this has been
Cult or just
Dirt.
boo? Weird.